Good afternoon. 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 Hello, 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 and welcome to Daring Dialogues. I'm your host today, Shantae Charles. I want to thank you, first of all, for your time and for your attention. It is day 3 of Black History Month, and I hope that you all have been learning. I hope you've been enjoying the things that you've been learning. I hope you've been taking time out to do something for yourself. I hope you've been taking time out to learn something new for yourself. And I want to thank you all for just being here and being in this space. I've got a short video I'm going to make today in honor of Black History Month, but it'll be on my Black Tabletop page. So if you head on over there and click like and follow, you will hopefully be notified of when that appears. We're going to be reading from a couple of books today. One is Meditations for Black Women, 75 Mindful Reflections to help you stay grounded and find your inner peace. Today is our day of inspiration. So let's see what is on our inspiration today. And I think this is a really good one. Today's topic is hold on to hope. Hold on to hope. The quote is coming from Michelle Obama, former First Lady of the United States. And a lot of people, by the way, this week are watching her documentary that came out, I believe, in 2020 called Becoming. We saw it when it came out. It's a pretty good documentary just following her life after her time in the White House. So if you're interested in seeing that, go check it out. It is now on Netflix. I think it came out initially on Amazon, but now it's on Netflix. Her quote says this: "Don't ever make decisions based on fear. Make decisions based on hope and possibility. Make decisions based on what should happen, not what shouldn't." Meditation. I will not be led by my fears, but by my hopes. Reflection. Like with many things, Michelle Obama, former First Lady of the United States, is right about this. Making decisions in your life will require you to lean into hope and not fear. This is because hope is the driving force that keeps you moving forward whenever you have to deal with adversity. And good afternoon. Now, holding on to hope is easier said than done. You move through this world as a member of a marginalized group and are more likely to experience things that make you question if hope even exists. When misogynoir rears its ugly head your way through someone's words or actions, it can be hurtful. As a result, you may put up emotional walls and lean into an anxious mindset, making decisions out of fear and self protection. However, you cannot succumb to your anxious thoughts. To lean into hope, you will have to acknowledge your feelings. So if you're feeling anxious, breathe deeply and release your fears around whatever stressful circumstances you're currently dealing with. Inhale. I will be led by my hopes. And exhale. I will not be led by my fears. Next, You will have to process your thoughts. This can be done verbally with a trusted loved one or mental health professional. Or you can write out your feelings in a journal. Either way, if you struggle with holding on to hope when needing to make tough life decisions, slow down and then proceed. And I actually happen to have one of my journals here. I have several journals for different things, but this one is called Writing Prompts for the Creative Scribe. And I really like it. It's actually really good. For people who just, you want to, um, you don't necessarily know where to start, or if you're just a writer in general and you want to just get into the practice of writing every single day, buying a journal that already has writing prompts is a helpful way to do that. It just gives you a topic and jump starts whatever it is that you need to get out or you want to write about. So, writing journals that already have writing prompts in them are great. Take action. Explore any recent decisions you've been making. Did you make those decisions out of fear or hope? Now, a lot of people say because of the climate that we're in right now, right, that there are some what we would call valid fears, right? If you are a marginalized person, you know that our government is unfortunately targeting people based on their physical features, based on their attributes, based on where they work, and all of those kinds of things. And so those are valid fears, fears of being targeted. However, you don't live out of that fear, right? You take action in ways that help you to manage what you're feeling in this moment. Some of those actions that you could take is getting in community, joining a local organization that is responding to and resisting fear-driven tactics that's happening in people's community. So there are ways to manage your fear that is valid. Um, a lot of times when I hear people say, well, don't be fearful. That's, don't do this. This is a fear tactic. I had someone in my social media space this morning as we were telling people to be mindful because at the time of the writing, Haitians were being, their temporary protective status was ending here in the United States. And people said, hey, you all need to be aware that if this does happen, um, then more people of color, more Black people, more Black Americans would begin to be targeted. That's not a fear tactic. That's just reality. That's the simple reality of what it is. And so someone came into my space and they said, oh, this is not our fight. This is not our fight. This is just a fear tactic. Um, Again, and I think we've covered this here before. Um, these people are not stopping to ask you what kind of Black person you are. They might be doing some of that in Minnesota. They might be asking people, are you Somali? But typically, generally, where this is happening in other parts of the country, they're not stopping people and saying, "Hey, what kind of Black person are you?" They're not doing that. Some of them are not even asking, "Are you a US citizen?" Some of them are refusing to take people's ID when they show them their ID and they say, "Hey, I have a real ID." And in order to get one of those, you do have to show your birth certificate, i.e., your proof of citizenship in order to get a real ID. And so when people say, hey, we need to be aware of this, we need to be alert, that's not fear, that's reality. That's common sense. That is not denying what is happening in your country. And so I want people to understand that fear, whatever form it comes in, it is a part of the emotions, right? We have a range of emotions that we feel. And I've heard people say, hey, can you take care of this in a non-emotional way? Every human being has been given a range of emotions. So to tell someone that they don't have a right to access their emotions to get something done, you're actually taking away a part of what makes them human. And we don't want to do that. All right. So that's that on that. So even if you feel a measure of fear today, I want to encourage you to lean into the emotion of hope. Lean into hope today. All right, I want to share with you a couple of people here in our Black History book. I'm trying to find somebody that you all might not have heard of. Oh yeah, she's a good one. I learned about her a couple years ago. So I'm gonna put a plug there. We learned about her last time. Some people know about her. I'm gonna add her today. And one more. I guess we can do all artists today. Let's do that. All right, I'm gonna give you 3 people today. The first one is going to be Oscar Micheaux. Anybody know or is familiar with Oscar Micheaux? Now, I learned about Oscar because of my professional life, which is art education and educating artists and teachers who are educating artists. And we learned about Oscar in film history. Oscar Micheaux, the author, has done a really nice, I think this is, what medium is this? This is color pencil. It's a really nice color pencil drawing of Oscar Micheaux. Let's learn about him. Oscar Micheaux lived from 1884 to 1951. My long experience with all classes of humanity had made me somewhat of a student of human nature. That's his quote. Just how Oscar Micheaux got his start to become the most prolific independent producer of Black films remains unclear. But during a career from 1919 through 1948, so you have to understand that his career is going through the Red Summers. His career is going through the reign of terror that was happening to Black folks during this time. From 1919 through 1948, this is Jim Crow, this is Red Summer, this is Tulsa being destroyed. That's the time that he was making films about Black people. Micheaux wrote, produced, directed, and distributed more than 40 films, founded his own production company, the Michaux Film Corporation, and was one of only a few Black independent creators to survive the transition from silent film to what we have today, film with sound. His 1931 film, The Exile, was the first sound film by a Black person. His final film, The Betrayal, from 1948, was the first Black-produced film to premiere in white-owned theaters. Micheaux was born in Metropolis, Illinois, and raised in Great Bend, Kansas. He found work as a Pullman porter, which, despite the low wages and the requirement to wait on white travelers hand and foot, allowed him to travel the country at a time when such movement was inaccessible to most Black people. In 1906, he used his earnings, often better paid than Black service workers earned elsewhere, to buy land in South Dakota, where he became a homesteader, writing as he found time. He lost the land to bankruptcy, but he used the experience to enhance his storytelling skills, writing a novel, his third, about a homesteading as a Black man. Micheaux published The Homesteader in 1917, selling it door to door. To counter the effects of D.W. Griffith's racist film, Birth of a Nation, which applauded the terrorism of a white supremacist country, Micheaux was inspired to adapt his book himself. It became the first film he directed in 1919. Just incredible. Where is the film on Oscar Micheaux? Let's just pause right there. I want you to just think about what we just read. He's already lived 3 lifetimes. He's he was a Pullman porter, then he becomes a homesteader, then he becomes a author, and then he becomes a movie producer. Why do I feel a connection to all of that? Hollywood's cultural influence on Michaux's movies is noticeable. He created within similar genres and encouraged the promotion of Black performers as versions of white studio stars. For example, Lorenzo Tucker, with handsome features, tall figure, and fair skin, was known as the Black Valentino. Ethel Moses, a Harlem star and former performer with Cab Calloway's band, was regarded as the Black Jean Harlow. And thanks to a sultry delivery and sensual appeal, B. Freeman was known as the Sepia Mae West. Silent movie stars such as Juano Hernandez continued their streak as Michaux's films moved into sound technology, transitioning into what they called back then talkies. All right, right along with their filmmakers. But Michaux also developed his own style of storytelling, one that spoke directly to a specifically Black audience. Actors such as Paul Robeson and Robert Earl Jones got their start in Michaux films, tackling themes that address the Black experience. Michaux's 1931 film, The Exile, based on his 1913 novel The Conquest, explores an interracial romantic affair. In his 1938 film God's Stepchildren, he takes on colorism in Black communities. In his 1939 film Birthright, he follows a young man set on founding a rural school, but who has to deal with pushback from Black and white communities. What's left of the film is in the Library of Congress archives. Some footage, like so many Black independent films from the turn of the century, has been lost to history. In 1986, Michaux posthumously won the Directors Guild of America Lifetime Achievement Award. Oscar Michaux. I need his biopic. I need somebody to go work on that. Go work on that. All right. Another artist, one of my favorite artists, um, Harriet Powers. Some of you might have heard of her. I think we may have talked about her briefly a couple years ago. But this is the artist rendering of Harriet Powers. And Harriet Powers has some connection to the Gullah Geechee community, has some connection to the Congo and Congo Christianity. Some of her quilts that are well known have some Congo Christianity symbolism in them. And many people said that her work kind of showed how people were communicating through the quilts. So let's take a look and let's read a little bit more about her. Harriet Powers was born 1837 and she lived until 1910. The quilt is the work of an aged Negro woman who put into it the reverence, the fantastic conception of sacred events, and the passion of imagination of her people. Lucine Finch. Harriet Powers' medium was textile needlework. She was known for quilting and embroidery while a enslaved person in Athens, Georgia, where she was born. Historians believe she was enslaved to John and Nancy Lester in Madison County, and some even go so far as to presume she learned her craft from her white mistress. But others note the similarities between Powers' detail work and that found in the techniques by artisans from the Dahomey, a pre-colonial African kingdom that is now in the southern part of Benin. Had she seen or had she been given other instruction, either through passed down traditions or a book? Census records indicate that by the 1880s, Powers had moved with her husband and family into rural Clark County and owned 4 acres of land. Eventually, she and her husband split, but Powers continued to work as a seamstress. She exhibited her first story quilt at the Cotton Fair in Athens in 1886, featuring applique, a technique in which smaller pieces of fabric are sewn onto a larger one. Her story quilt depicted Bible scenes that she reportedly could recite verbatim. It involved 299 pieces of separate cloth. For 4 years, Powers was pursued by Oneida, Virginia, Jenny Smith, who was the head of the art department at the Lucy Cobb Institute, to sell the work. Powers refused. After 4 years of intermittent back and forth, Powers accepted $5 for it, despite having wanted 10. Smith documented an oral history of Powers explaining the 11 panels on the quilt, which included Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, Satan and the Seven Stars, Cain killing his brother Abel, the crucifixion, and the Last Supper. Smith entered Powers' story quilt in the Cotton States, an international exposition in Atlanta in 1895. Following that public display, Powers was commissioned to create a quilt for the chairman of the Board of Trustees of Atlanta University. That 15-panel quilt illustrated biblical events as well. Powers' first story quilt is part of the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., while her second is held by the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. You should take a look at her work today if you have not seen it. Quite amazing. All right, last artist for today. And this is a living artist. Her name is Micheaux Thomas. And the artist has chosen to render her as a collage. I like it. Micheaux Thomas was born in 1971. Here I am, the artist, the person, the Black woman, and the stereotype. I'm using myself, and it has nothing to do with my muses or other women. It has all to do with me. Born in New Jersey, raised by Mama Bush, her 6-foot-tall mother, Thomas was exposed to art at an early age. She and her brother attended an after-school art program at the Newark Museum. In the 1980s, Thomas moved to Portland, Oregon to attend school. She then returned east to receive a fine arts degree at Pratt and an MFA in painting from Yale University. From there, Thomas leapt into the art world, stunning audiences with a provocative depiction of Black women, often herself, in intimate poses, sometimes in the cosplay of pop culture icons, such as, say, R&B singer Mary J. Blige. Micheaux Thomas launched her own highly anticipated celebrated show in 2012 at the Brooklyn Museum and the Santa Monica Museum of Art, now the Institute of Contemporary Art, an exhibition of large-scale, vibrant collage paintings depicting Black women. Regrettably, the exhibit wasn't picked up by other institutions. The feedback she got was that audiences weren't ready for her work. One critic asked, "Has Thomas gone too far?" The exhibition, titled Micheaux of the Universe, contained giant portraits of Black women amid mosaics of rhinestones and busy patterns, which lent a 1970s era playfulness to their femininity, boldness, and sensuality. It's interesting to consider what about this series and works that gaze affectionately upon Black women, done by a Black woman, was too much for certain museums and their perceived audiences. But Thomas, with her patchwork approach to image making, doesn't appear to be concerned with anyone's readiness. Inspired by the works of Romare Bearden, who is also in this book, and also one of my favorite artists, Carrie Mae Weems, Jacob Lawrence, and a vast archive of Black media publications, such as the beloved Jet magazine, Thomas uses her work to interrogate, honor, and expand on what we value in the Black American aesthetic. When asked what advice she would give to emerging Black artists, she answered in a way that revealed her fearlessness. There are great opportunities, but I've said no to a lot of things. As a Black artist, you've got to know your worth, and we've got to know when the opportunity is for them or for us. There's a great power in saying no. Say to yourself when you're asked for material, is this a win-win situation for both of you? If it's just a win for them, if you just want little increments of exposure, think about what you really have to gain. If they really want you, they will wait for the right opportunity. Don't be afraid to ask pressing, difficult, or uncomfortable questions. Cut through all the BS. As artists of color, we're at the top of the pyramid in the market. Without us, there is no market, period. Whether she's reflecting herself or channeling the influence of Edouard Manet or Henri Matisse, Thomas uses her work to engage with the Black female body and its historic narratives and possibilities. Now, I think what I want to do is, let me see if I can find a piece of, first of all, Harriet Powers' work. I'm bringing out my trusty tablet here. Let's see. Harriet Powers quilts. And let's see if we can blow this up big enough for you all to see it. Yeah. This one is called a pictorial quilt. And where is it? Let me go back. I probably need to find, let's see, images. There we go. Trying to find one that will actually show us the whole thing. Nope. One second. I'm just trying to get it big enough for you all to see. All right, that's good. All right, this is one of her quilts. Can you all see that? Hopefully, pretty good. That's one of her quilts. And they all represent biblical scenes. Symbolic, though. Let's see. So they show you some of the panels close up. There's one. And I was trying to find the one that shows her connection to the Congo. Here's one. These are panels from the same quilt. I think this one is supposed to be the naming of the animals. Yeah, let's see. I can't tell which panel this is. Here's another one. It's a panel. All right, Micheaux Thomas. Now, hopefully I won't get booted off of YouTube. I'm going to try to find something that's not controversial from her, just to show you an example of her work. Micheaux Thomas artwork. Yeah, okay. And some of this is just like, what do you mean? What is controversial about this again? All right. Let's see if I can make this one larger. Come on. Thank y'all for your patience. I'm just trying to, I don't know if I can make this one larger. But you guys can see this in the corner. All right. You see that piece? Everybody see that? Now, please tell me what's controversial about that. They said they were not ready for, they felt people were not ready for her works. And this one is called Origin of the Universe. I have actually seen this one a couple of times online. Oh, yeah, that's a better shot. All right, this is from the exhibit, Origin of the Universe. And I've seen that one right there. I've seen that one online by itself. But apparently people had a problem with this exhibit. And they said people are not ready for her works. Are they serious? I'm ready for it. I don't know about anybody else. All right. But those are the people I wanted to share with you today. Let me see. Oscar Michaux. Like they said, a lot of his films have been lost to history. But I want to see if there are any. I want to see if there are any possibly on YouTube. Um, like they said, he had over 40 films. Look at that. All of those are Oscar Michaux films. This man was working. He was working his tail off. And you know what encourages me about that? The thing that encourages me is he was doing all of this creative production during America's reign of terror against Black people. Like, yeah. 1919 to 1948. Some of the most terrifying times for Black people. He was getting it done. Hmm. This is the one that they mentioned in the reading God's Stepchildren. There's the cover image for that. But yeah, there is Amazon.com has a book on him called The Czar of Black Hollywood. The Czar of Black Hollywood. And YouTube has a couple of short documentaries on him. One is called Frame by Frame Oscar Michaux. And, they said they have, of course, awarded him a Lifetime Achievement Award posthumously. But he is somebody that I feel like I would love to see a biopic on him. How powerful would that be? That in spite of everything that was happening in spite of his own conditions, as a Pullman porter, he would take his job, he would take his savings, begin investing in himself, and begin to do his art. And in turn, open up doors for people like Paul Robeson to do his art. We don't get a Paul Robeson without Oscar Michaux. I want us to think about that. That's mind-blowing in and of itself. All right. That concludes what I wanted to share today. I'm going to open it up for some discussion with Pastor Ben. Pastor Ben, if you're still there, I'm going to add you. Give me just a moment. I may take a little blink off here as I do this adding, but I will be right back. All right. So let's see. Let's try it again. All right. And I have just sent you the link. Leslie says, I think it needs to be, I think it needs to be in front of more eyes. I would agree. That was some beautiful work. So how did the reviewers, I'm curious to know, I'm curious to wonder how they came to the conclusion that people were not ready for her work. That's wild. Big courage. He must have been compelled to do his art. Absolutely. Toni Morrison said it this way. She said, now, in these kinds of times, now is the time that artists get to work, that artists go to work. And I think I happen to agree with that. Good morning. Afternoon, rather.
Well, yeah, you almost had me saying good morning. Well, actually, where I'm at now it is still morning.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about the controversial stuff. It appears that anything that has to do with black and black excellence, African American education and history is controversial.
Uh-oh, somebody
The
is
truth
saying
is
no sound.
controversial.
Can you all hear me? I might have to start yelling because sometimes when I come back on, the
I,
sound is lower. Can you hear
I
me? Okay. All right. So you said sometimes anything that has to do with black often becomes controversial. You don't have to add anything else to it. Just be black.
yeah, controversial. And especially if it's something good or positive. It's controversial anyway because it's black. But once it reaches a certain level of excellence or truth, it's controversial. But it seems like fake history, they don't see it as controversial. And it was seems that the false information would be controversial.
Mm-hmm.
But in the atmosphere we're in now, it's the norm.
Yeah, so even in just kind of scrolling through her work, Micheaux Thomas's work, I was expecting to see something like radical, based on what the reviewer was saying that people aren't ready for her work. But I just saw women. I saw women's faces. I saw women seated. I saw portraits of black women. And so I was confused by that because I have actually seen some wild stuff in 26 years that I've been doing this. And there was nothing wild about. I mean, if blue lipstick is the wildest we have going on in an art piece, um, I'm gonna just ask you to get out more. If you're the reviewer, maybe the reviewer is only used to reviewing European art. Maybe that's what it was.
Hmm.
Because I didn't see anything controversial about her art pieces.
Well, there wasn't anything controversial about it, other than it being by a black person about black people.
Hold on one second. Go ahead.
Um, I I'm gonna say this because this morning I had a conversation with somebody on social media, and they were saying, "Well, Epstein has been arrested, Maxwell has been arrested. Let's get past this and move on." And my response was, "So you're saying that if your daughter is in that situation, a young daughter is in that situation, as long as they got the ringleaders, everything is okay and nobody else should pay. That's perfectly fine. That nobody else is punished. None of the perpetrators. That's perfectly fine with you." I said, "I hope you're not a parent.
Mm,
And if you're not, I hope you never become one. Because most parents will basically pretty much black out and be ready to do somebody some harm. That's a that's a protection mechanism of a parent. I say, but thank you for exposing your heart.
mm,
See, now this situation is not a controversy. Crimes have been committed.
mm-hmm,
Innocence has been lost.
mm-hmm,
Everybody involved
mm-hmm.
should be brought to justice. There shouldn't even be a debate about that.
And the issue is even with this dumping of all of this data, people's names can be in the data, but because of the sheer amount of information, you still have to wade through it and figure out what was the context of someone's name being mentioned, right?
Right.
There's people, they're saying, oh, so and so is in the files, but you have to wade through why their name is in the files.
Right. I agree with that.
Like some people, he was trying to sell a plane, I think it was to Russell Wilson. He was brokering a plane deal, like selling his plane to him. And Russell Wilson had to come out and say, "Hey, my name is here because there was a deal that was supposed to be made. I didn't know who I was buying the plane from. So
Mm-hmm.
don't try to connect me to some nefarious purpose just because you did a scan and my name came up in a file." Like, I get some people are upset about that, right? Um, but one thing I know, I saw a news release today, which gives me hope, right? That the UK is referring people whose names who are high profile. The UK is already referring them people to the police. I said, "Oh, this is my kind of goings on." The
Mm-hmm.
UK is not playing. So one of
Mm-mm.
their members of the House of Lords just had to resign this morning. They resigned. They stepped down from their position because the UK automatically referred their name to the police for investigation. Straight up. They're like, "Nope, we not doing what the United States doing. The United States is
Right.
lollygagging. That's what they doing." Ellie Leonard has a team working through it. She's a transcriber by trade and taking this on. That's a wink, wink for look for your check in the mail. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And so, what I have said to people is, listen, I have my own personal history with kidnapping, with CSA, with intimate assault. Um, and so I'm gonna let the people that have the stomach for it go through the files and do it, and break down the stuff. I don't have the stomach for it. I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my lane. I can talk about what has happened to me, which I've done in the past. I've done interviews for people, talking about um, what I know about CSA and that whole cultic world, because there's a cultic world behind it, and I've done interviews about that in the past. For people who've asked me to talk about it, I don't talk about it often, because there is still trauma attached to it, and also because there are people who I cannot name that have chosen to not ever go public with what happened to them. So I'm trying to respect victims' privacy, which
Mm-hmm.
which by the way, our Justice Department did not do. There are certain victims' names who had never to this up until this point been revealed, that are now being revealed because of the way that they dumped these files. People whose names were supposed to be redacted as far as victims' names, who had never come out to say this happened to me, their names are out in the open. They're unprotected. But then there are people who were doing the dirt, who were collaborators, their names are covered out. Exactly. They
Mm-hmm.
left the criminals out and exposed the victims,
Mm-hmm.
which is so kind of next level evil. I can't even just, yeah, yeah. And so yeah,
Well,
there are a lot of people who are parsing through the files, who are making connections. I was listening to someone last night who was kind of making the connection between, um, why would Putin's name be in the files so many times, and what they were trying to do then. But I believe in his first term, people said that he was an asset. And I've been making jokes about Melania being his handler. I've always thought that.
mm-hmm.
That she is there to be his handler and to keep him in line. Why does our society silently agree to disbelieve the victims? That was the other piece. Yesterday I said that. Believe the victims. We Yes, we want people brought to We want people brought to justice, right? But I shouldn't need millions of files dumped in order to believe the victims. That's the part that kind of got me. Like, believe the victims. Some people are no longer here. Some people have lost their life behind the trauma and not being believed. And like they said, a lot of this is um, calls that were made. People were calling this stuff in. People were doing anonymous tips and anonymous reporting. And we still don't know whether any of these tips were followed up on. We have the files of these things, but we don't know if people followed up on them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a whole other issue with how this information is being disseminated. And like I said yesterday, 34 felons, 34 felonies couldn't convince you that this man was a horrible person. If 34 felonies already didn't convince you that this man was a horrible person, I don't know that finding out his horrible crimes against children would actually do it. He's been horrible.
Nah.
This is to me, this is horrible on top of horrible. It tells young women they will not be protected under the law. Right. And even with what happened to myself, that person got off. They did not do any time for the crime they committed. So I still have to live with what happened, right? I feel like I'm in a better place, working through my own trauma, but I still have to live with what happened and the fact that that person did no time and the fact that that person is possibly doing it to other people because they got away with it when they did it to me. So that kind of thing does not go away. It's something that you live with. It's something that you have to process when it comes up. That this evil, wicked person could possibly be doing this to another person because they got off. They never did the time for the crime. And what we're seeing and have seen as these files continue to come out, these people have been doing this kind of evil, diabolical wickedness for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no expectation of getting caught because they were all in on it. And they're all still, many of them are still protecting each other. Else, why would you be redacting all these names? Because
Right.
you're still protecting the criminals while exposing the
And
victims.
exposing the victim.
Mm-hmm. So that's that's also putting the target on the victims' backs and letting the criminals know who exactly
Yes.
reported because these were supposed to be anonymous reportings. So yeah, it's a mess.
That's the current administration.
Leslie said, I think it's a privileged kink who can do the worst thing and get away with it. Possibly. But here's what I believe. I believe that nobody truly gets away with anything.
They don't.
Time and chance happen to us all. And so, yeah, I will say that one of the people that was a part of the CSA that I had talked about um, when I did my interview, they died, and they died a very painful death. And as they were on their deathbed, they were asking people um, to tell me and the victim that they were sorry. And the person said to them, um, you need to be able to tell them yourself. And I said, I'm not interested in talking to that person. Um, I'm just not. You don't wait all the way to your deathbed to tell me you're sorry. Um, work that out with the creator as you leave this plane. Everyone has to answer for what they have done. As sick as that sounds, the act is really power to be above the law. Yep, exactly. Everyone has to answer for what they have done in this body. Absolutely.
It's called reaping what you've sown.
Reaping what you have sown. And so my hope is we're gonna go back to hope. My hope is that number one, these victims of this abuse will be protected, um, and that people will press for these collaborators' names to be unredacted so that we can get to the bottom of who actually did what, because these people need to be prosecuted seriously. And we know that the way that these things have been exposed is to sort of paint a picture of, well, one side is worse than the other, rather than these are all the
Mm-hmm.
people that took part in it and all of them need to be prosecuted.
Right.
Whether they are Democrat, whether they're Republican, whether they're independent, they all need to be prosecuted.
Right. One thing that I keep pointing out is that even when and their response was, "We don't care. The criminals are criminals. They need to be prosecuted." While the other side was still trying to protect theirs.
You know what? I'm so sorry, everyone. I do have to go, but I do want to thank you all for your time and your attention, okay? Thank you all for the conversation, and we'll talk tomorrow. All right? Okay. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.